And welcome to the Dr. Tech and Talk Tech show, where myself, Pauline Roche, and Sweyn Hunter, and occasional guests guide you through the world of online communications in a show which was the brainchild of the late great internet evangelist John Popham. And in traditional fashion, we welcome our guest, Claudette Dawson, who we're delighted to join us. Thank you very much, Claudette. And we ask each other how the weather is where we are. So, Sweyn, I'll start with you. How is the weather where you are?
So exciting. It's the most snow we've had in Orkney for years and years and years. The sledges everywhere. There's roads closed here and there briefly. We're all having a great time with the snow.
And in Birmingham, I've been out already this morning. I bought a weighted blanket this morning from Lidl. Oh, exciting! And there's a kind of a flurry of snow, but it's I don't think it's going to last. Hopefully, but it's a little bit white, but not desperately. Claudette, how's the weather where you are?
Very similar to yourself, Pauline. I didn't buy anything from Lidl this morning, but we did have just a very little sprinkling of snow, but most of it's gone now in my area of Birmingham. So yeah, back to normal, but a bit grey.
Hope it lasts because want to get out when I can. So we are very delighted to have you with us, Claudette, this morning. I know you can't stay for the whole show, so we will make the most of your time with us. But I will go through some of the usual stuff that we go through, and we'll come back to you in a minute.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So this week it is National Apprenticeship Week. And for those who are not sure what apprentices are, all apprenticeships include elements of on-the-job and off-the-job training, leading to industry-recognised standards of qualifications. And some apprenticeships will require an assessment at the end of the programme to assess the apprentice's ability and competence in their job role. So the week, National Apprenticeship Week, is an annual week-long celebration of apprenticeships across England, a time to recognise and applaud apprenticeship success stories across the country. And apprenticeship employers use this opportunity to promote the success of their apprentices and highlight the huge benefits to other employers of all sizes who are thinking of taking on an apprentice. And we have we don't have the right screen there, Sweyn.
I beg your pardon.
But we do have a link to the government website, which is www.gov.uk/government/news/National Apprenticeship Week 2021 date announced. Doesn't exactly flow off the tongue, but it's good to know that there is an announcement there that the government has celebrates the idea of having apprentices. So the second date we're noting around this time this week is Tuesday the 9th of February is Safer Internet Day 2021, and this is promoted by the UK Safer Internet Centre, which is a partnership between ChildNet International, Internet Watch Foundation and Southwest Grid for Learning, part funded by the European Union and part of the InSafe InHope network. And this day will be celebrated in the UK with the theme An Internet We Trust, exploring reliability in the online world, which is very relevant to our programme. And this year in the UK, the day explores reliability online. The internet has an amazing range of information and opportunities online, but how do we separate fact from fiction? And globally, Safer Internet Day will be celebrated with the slogan, Together for a Better Internet. So if you're looking online for stories about the Safer Internet Day, we're looking for hashtag An Internet We Trust. And the account is at UK_SIC. And I understand from looking at their Twitter feed this morning, they're aiming for a Guinness World Record of pledges for a safer internet. So if you're feeling like pledging something, maybe there's still time to pledge your support for a safer internet. The next thing is an event on Wednesday, the 10th of February, Tech and Digital for Small Voluntary Organisations. And this is an event organised, co-brought to you by two Tech for Good networks, NetSquared Midlands, which I help to run, and sister group NetSquared London, bringing this event to small voluntary organisations in the Midlands. And it's coming with speakers from the Centre for Social Acceleration of Technology, CAST, and the Institute of Voluntary Action Research, IVAR. And it will be a space to take stock, share and learn from others who've been on a similar digital journey, where 2020 saw many small voluntary organisations grappling with tech and taking their services online for the first time. So I think that'll be relevant again to a lot of our listeners on Dr. Tech and on Hope Radio in South Birmingham. And the last thing we're noting around this time of year is Chinese New Year. On Friday, the 12th of February, is Chinese New Year, and this year it's the year of the ox. And we had a web page about that as well, which tells us about how many days it lasts. I think it's, what does it say there, Sweyn? It's 16 days? 16 days,
16 days, of which 7 are a public holiday.
Very good. That's the 11th to the 17th. And the year of the ox it's a transition year between zodiac signs, and 2020 was the year of the rat. So if you're into looking up what that means for you, then go to the website, which is chinesenewyear.net, and you can find out all about that. And so we come to our special guest. This week, we're very delighted to have Claudette Dawson with us. And looking at Claudette's LinkedIn, I see that she's a soft skills trainer, and I know this because we're old friends, Claudette and I. She's a keen and aspiring trainer with a broad range of experience in designing and delivering a variety of soft skills courses and workshops within the private, voluntary, and public sector. And Claudette delivers professional workplace development courses and provides quality community workshops and programs. And I'll let Claudette speak for herself. Claudette, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
It's very nice to have you here, Claudette. And we're particularly interested in hearing what you've been doing kind of very lately with women, teaching them to use technology a bit more. So if you can tell us a bit about that, and then we can go back and hear a bit more about how you got started on this. So if we can do the up-to-date stuff first, and then go backwards, if that's okay.
Absolutely,
thank you very much.
Absolutely. So the up-to-date stuff, and then we'll reverse. I've had the absolute joy. And when we go backwards, you'll realise I didn't think it was going to be a joy in the first place, but it has been. I've had the absolute joy of delivering a programme via an organisation called Shakti Women. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But what we were able to do was to get a number of women who potentially either didn't know about Zoom or knew a little bit about Zoom or wanting to learn more about Zoom to actually come on a Zoom boot camp. And I have to confess, because it was the first time I delivered it, it was almost like I put the course together. I designed it for 4 weeks, but they were loving it so much. We extended it further and just continued for another 3. So it ended up actually being 7 weeks and 8 weeks to wrap it up. But they absolutely loved it. And for me, as always, as a trainer, to see the light bulb moments come on for individuals, that they're learning something, they're enjoying it, is just priceless. And especially clearly in the time that we're in now, it's absolutely vital for us to embrace technology and also make sure that we're learning new things, not to be afraid of it. I was too, which you'll hear in a second. But it was just a joy, an absolute joy. And in fact, my understanding is some of the women have actually gone on to do their own coffee mornings and to share their learning with others. So again, you know, it's not something that, okay, I've learnt it and that's it. Clearly, it's something they can use daily, which has been a joy.
So how did you recruit the women who came on the course? What did you do during it?
Right. Okay. So I have to admit, it was almost like chicken and egg. Because of course, the whole point is, how do you find people who don't want to be on Zoom to be on Zoom? So what we thought, okay, what we'll do is we'll actually spend quite a bit of time at the beginning, actually speaking to individuals, actually ensuring that they're going to feel comfortable online, and more importantly, taking them through the very first steps of downloading Zoom, etc. So when I say a group of individuals coming, well, women in this case, on Zoom, I'm talking, I don't even know what Zoom is. I thought Zoom was something you did on a camera. So we're talking really, really baby steps. So we decided I would spend the first week or so as part of the project actually calling women, speaking to them, seeing how they felt, actually speaking them through downloading it on their phone or iPad or laptop, whatever it might be. So really being patient at that beginning, because what we found was as I said, it was chicken and egg. You're putting something online to say, come and learn Zoom. Well, I'm petrified, so I don't know how to start. So we did the little bit of one-on-one conversations first, and then we got into it that way. So the way I positioned it, it was an hour that we'd spend together, which very quickly turned into an hour and 15, hour and a half. Sometimes they were loving it, but we would have a little bit of soft chatter at the beginning, you know, how you doing, where you are, da da da. And I mean baby steps. So we're talking, the first things were where the buttons were, what the buttons mean. We then moved on to, where do I find the mute and the video, and how do I do a chat, and so forth. And then, of course, as the weeks went on, we then started to move on to whiteboard, sharing, and the beauty was, by I say week 3, we'd have other individuals come and join us, and the women who had done the first 3 weeks, I'd say, okay, so I'm going to put you in a breakout room and I want you to pick a subject, whether it's mute, video, whatever, and train it to the new people, which they were doing. So of course, in a very quick space of time, the ladies were really starting to feel very, very comfortable with the platform. But of course, we take time with it. We make sure that nobody feels left behind at all. And to the point where we appreciate people have different devices, etc. So it could be, I'm very much an Android person, so somebody else would have an iPhone and they would then share from an iPhone perspective what was happening. And so each week we'd have a theme, but we'd also have a little bit of a discussion. So especially with the elements of lockdown, you know, we might have just a little bit of discussion. How are people feeling? By week 4, how were they able to use Zoom? Some people were saying, I've talked with my family, or I've did some things with the kids, or the kids are now off school, so they've got to do this. It was just brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
And what did you find, what resources did you find most useful to help people? The Zoom website itself, or other resources?
I have to confess, I mean, I took quite a bit from the Zoom website itself, but again, I think the appreciation of how people are genuinely feeling in the first instance, it can feel a bit overwhelming, and clearly the data is there and that's great, but of course, not everybody wants to read lots of detail. They just want to kind of get on with it. So I used a little bit of some of the things from Zoom itself, but I actually put myself on a Zoom school as well. And it's an environment that is absolutely priceless, especially with the work that I do. And so again, it's a group of people. There's probably about 20 something of us. We just had one on Saturday, usually from education backgrounds. So the majority of them are either teachers or trainers. And the gentleman who runs it then shares some information with us and new tips and resources and so forth, which I was then sharing with my Zoom group. So it was a bit of a mixture, really.
Excellent, excellent. And what kind of backgrounds are the women from? Are they in business? Are they in education themselves? Community groups?
Whole mixture. We've got individuals that are perhaps working from home. We've got individuals who are entrepreneurs and doing their own businesses. We've got individuals who are carers, and so they've got their children perhaps at school, but they've got those few hours where, as somebody who's got a bit of spare time, they're looking to, up their own skills. We've got individuals who are stay-at-home mums as well, which is a job within itself. So a whole remit, really, a whole remit. And it was, again, lovely that it didn't matter what level or what experience we had. We were all learning together, which was beautiful.
Sweyn's got on the screen now the
at last I've got the right
website. A quote from the Zoom bootcamp. I was apprehensive about joining the course, but I have thoroughly enjoyed each session. I have learned how to participate in chat rooms, use Smartboard, and share images. It does sound like, it sounds, I think, for myself and Sweyn, who are, quite familiar with tech, obviously, because of the work that we do, it does sound very basic, but we forget how it can be very difficult to get into that sort of thing, and it's and having someone to hold your hand through it, like yourself, who has the that training around soft skills, I think must have been invaluable for people.
Yeah, I think actually, Pauline, you've hit the nail on the head there, and I think because of the time that we find ourselves in, people have been thrust into online things, and there's a huge gap that people are assuming that people know. So as you say, don't get me wrong, yes, there's people who are, hitting the ground running and learning it themselves or learning it through work or whatever, but there's quite a huge amount of people that actually don't know where to start. I mean, for example, my son had started college, and because of course we couldn't physically go to the college and have the induction, we did it online. And I'm talking, there was probably 200 and something parents. And when we got online, there was people in the chat going, where I can't hear, what do I do? And I thought, well, here we go. Here's the assumption that, okay, parents, let's get online. So, filling that gap, even for a few people, is really, really quite a gift, really. I've been quite honored.
I love what you were saying about getting people quickly soon after they started to kind of pass on what they'd learned to other people, because I think that's bound to have a multiplying effect. Each of those people will have friends, and each of those friends will have friends, and bits and pieces of the starting knowledge get shared that way. It sounds great. It sounds like a great approach.
Absolutely.
And we do ask our guests, Claudette, because we learn from mistakes as well. Did anything go wrong? Was there anything that you would have done differently, or that people found didn't work the way it should have?
I think for myself, I am a little bit of a stickler, and I like to be organised, and I've got my notes and and all the rest of it, and that's great. And so that did work. But what I had to remind myself is how open and flexible I needed to be, because yes, you've got your template that says, right, we're going to cover this and this and this, but actually it might take 5 minutes extra to go through something. And so you really need to have that flexibility. And very quickly after the first session, I'd have my own little reflection time and consider, right, this is what I need to do. But the last 2 things, I've actually moved it to the next week because we spent more time. And then another week, we might go through things very quickly. So I think what I certainly learned very, very quickly was to really have that flexibility in the delivery, so that we could really take time and make sure that no one was left behind and everybody felt comfortable. So yeah, for sure. The other thing I think is a big one, and even myself, I'm going to be very honest with you, even today it was like, oh, I took my hair out last week. If my hair was up last week, they could have asked me last week and it was better, and the greys are showing, and and that is actually what I shared within the group, because I do genuinely believe there's many people that would be online, but the fear of this camera and this video, and Pauline, you know what I'm talking about. Pauline knows me from way back. It absolutely petrified me. So again, I spoke quite openly with the women with how I was feeling, because I think what can very quickly happen is people don't want to put their video on, and they're going, well, it's all right for her and all right for him, and they're used to it. We're doing this afraid half of the times, and it's important that people know that,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah.
Good.
Yes, we were just chatting earlier when we Pauline, about whether we should have our fleeces on. But we both decided it was more important to be warm than to look.
How would we look? When history is written, we'll look back on us and think, well, they didn't look very good. They didn't really use themselves up for the camera, and
I've thought of the answer, Pauline.
All right,
we need to get Dr. Tech logo fleeces.
We'll do that. Yeah. As soon as we land that big contract, yeah.
We'll add it to the list. Yes.
So Claudette, can we go back a bit now and hear about kind of how you first got started online yourself, and how you got interested, and what your hopes and fears are were then and are now, what it looks like now?
Well, where do I start? We'd need a whole week for this program, I tell you.
We've got most of an hour, so take your time.
We'll see how we go.
Us.
We'll see how we go. Okay, so I'm just going to put it out there, live or not. Okay, so I had my 50th birthday in November last year. And so I come from the old school of, I'm talking typing, okay? So literally touch typing, copy typing, audio typing, etc. And then, of course, we moved into word processing and so forth. So me and computers, fine. But anything more than that, as soon as it started to move into the whole social realm with a camera, I just started to kind of step back a bit and go, okay, well, I'll leave everybody else to get on with that. And again, Pauline knows a little bit about this, but of course, we originally met as I was a member of Shakti Women, who again is the organisation that does the project. And I remember, I started there back in 2011. And I remember there were particular days where we would talk about, and then then it was sort of Facebook and LinkedIn was just coming in and so on and so forth. And even then I was very hesitant. Yes, I can have a paper CV and I can give it to someone, but my goodness, electronically, heavens forbid, kind of thing. And it took me a long time to get my head around how I could position myself electronically. But of course, with the help, and most certainly from Pauline, even now, I remember the sessions we had about, looking at our blog and how we word it and how we present ourselves, etc. All of those things actually came from Pauline. But I very quickly started to see the benefit of it. And actually, the fear, so to speak, was outweighed by the benefit of actually using it. But then I must quickly fast forward to March last year. And I confess, and I say it hand on heart, I've been delivering in the training room for a couple of decades now. And I love it. The dynamics of the room, the energy that you can get from people is just absolutely amazing. And my head would not compute that I could do that online. So I said, no, I'm not doing online. No, I'm not doing it. No. And then March the 17th happened. I was physically in a school and they said, I'm ever so sorry, quite a few of the teachers are unwell. We can't do the delivery. And that was it. And I had a little word with myself. In fact, it was a strong word with myself, literally on the drive home from the school. And I said, Claude, you have got to embrace one of the platforms at least. Whether it's Microsoft, it's Zoom. There's more Google Meets and stuff now. But I thought you've got to embrace something or you're going to get left behind. And so I thought, okay, I'm on lockdown, got nothing else to do. Why not? Why not give it a go? And that's when I just literally, started to go online, had to look at some Eventbrite stuff. And that's when I found this Zoom school by a gentleman called Mike. I forget his surname. I think it's Fleetham. Absolutely amazing. And he started literally, again, very similarly, a few friends, let's get together, bounce a few ideas. And this Zoom school just started to grow from there. So I think the appreciation for how people feel reluctant about technology, I genuinely feel share quite openly with people because I get it. It's scary. We don't know, and who's behind that, and do I want to be on camera, and what if I press the wrong button? What if we press the wrong button? Let's find out where the right button is.
Exactly.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Very, very good. I remember
I've had so many stories like this, and each one gives me enormous pleasure. Living where I live in the far north of Scotland in the islands, we've been trying to get other people to try this out for a long time, so that we just have to we can all travel less. We've tried layering on climate guilt or savings in staff time or whatever. But as soon as everyone had to be, as you said, were just forced to be in their homes effectively, at least for the first few weeks, suddenly the balance of risk and benefit and compromise changed. And we could bottle that and try and keep it for after the pandemic. Absolutely. Everyone wants to get back to face-to-face stuff, but let's not lose all the fabulous progress that we've made in online stuff as well, particularly live online stuff. And training is really where it's at, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
Definitely. So has your offer changed then, Claudette, since the beginning of lockdown?
It has, and it's a good job. It's a good job it has changed, because I have physically been in an environment to deliver training one day. I kid you not. I kid you not. So, and again, as a self-employed individual, that would be 1 day's work in the last nearly year. And so looking back, I think absolutely it was the right thing to do. But also, as you're saying, even moving forward after things might potentially go back slightly differently, it's definitely something that I will continue to do. I remember getting quite choked up. I was delivering a course with the connection with Royal Navy, and they asked, could we do it sort of mid-afternoon because we've got people from Afghanistan on and so in this part of the world and da, 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 da. And I stood there literally looking at the screen with these 12 individuals and thinking, well, I couldn't get them in a training room, could I? Well, I could, but it'll be expensive. So very quickly, I thought, oh my gosh, this is a whole different makeup. This is a whole different makeup. It really, really is. And not that I want to be too gloomy, but recently my father passed. And in fact, I'm doing a Zoom get together on the weekend with family around the world, Jamaica, Canada, America. I would never have been able to do that had I not embraced this. And so, you know, I understand it's vital for the workplace, but of course, you know, even family wise, I'm thinking to myself, it's brilliant.
So have you still just got a basic account, Claudette, or have you progressed and got a more upscale account on?
Yes,
Zoom?
well, again, typical trainer. Immediately I thought, oh, I've got to have my polls. So immediately I got myself an account. Again, I understand there's a lot that we can do, of course, with the free accounts, but I felt immediately I didn't want to feel restricted with timings and so forth. I just wanted to be able to set the times that I want to, you know, use a couple of the extra features. And so I immediately went on to an account.
It's great to hear you basically just saying, I just had to do it, so I did it, because it is, you know, it just needs the motivation for us each to take the first step, and then the second and third step come along. And if, as we say sometimes on this show, you know, we're doing this kind of small thing each week. We're not trying to be the BBC. It doesn't really matter if there's a bit of chaos here and there. I think I've shared the wrong screen 10 times this morning, but nobody really cares. I mean, you try and do your best, and you try and keep track of what you're trying to achieve and go for that purposefully. But it's really important, both for our own continuing well-being and to encourage other people to take part, is that it's some kind of fun some of the time.
Absolutely.
Or maybe not fun in the case of your get together next week, but some personal or emotional need being met, as well as just hard information and hard learning, as it were.
Yeah.
And it's so good to hear all these stories of how people across the world are coming to, you know, local initiatives are gaining a kind of national or even international dimension to them. And I think everybody will gain from that. I really do. And it's one of the most exciting things that I've seen happen as a kind of silver lining to all the awfulness.
Yeah. So what would you say, Claudette, are your kind of favorite things about Zoom? What have you discovered? What are you know, when we used to work together, I'd come into your office and say, oh, look at this. And like when I told you about getting WhatsApp web on your laptop, you know, rather than just on your phone. I mean, that was a game changer, wasn't it? And some people are still discovering that.
I think everyone has a brilliant moment when they work out how to do that.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I used that, Pauline. I used that last week because, again, we've got family group chats and so forth, and the information that I was sending was a little bit too long, and so I put it on the computer, and my daughter walked in and she went, oh, I didn't know you could do that. I thought, I knew. It's brilliant. But just to go back to the point that was made before with regards to, I appreciate we use the word fun or making mistakes. I actually think that's absolutely vital, because again, that's what's stopping people. They think they have to be perfect before they can come on, and I've got to show them that actually, where's me PowerPoint? Just a second. I've got to show them that I do that too, and we all do that, you know. So I think that's very important.
Yeah.
And
it's
so
not the end of the world. We're not going to break the internet. it's human, and it's part of how we learn to do things.
Absolutely.
Try and fail 100 times.
That's
Edison
right.
and all the greats did that.
It gives a moment for the delegates, whatever you call trainees, to just have a moment among themselves as well. If you're concentrating on getting something to work, then somebody else can have a chat with somebody else.
Absolutely.
And it just all becomes a bit more social and a bit more human.
Yeah.
And that's what we're all about here, is to make everything enjoyable and human and useful.
For sure. Pauline, I think to answer your question, I mean, I'm going to confess, because as much as I've been embracing Zoom, I've been doing one at a time. But I do know some of my organisations that I work with will insist that we use Teams. And so I've done very little with Teams. I've clicked a button, I can see how it works, and that's it. So Zoom has really been the one that I've been embracing. And I'm loving... the breakout, I think, is just absolutely fantastic. And of course, the newer things that are coming in with regards to people choosing their breakouts, depending on the group, obviously, the little funny faces and things that you can put on, no doubt I use them sometimes. Pauline knows my style of training is very interactive and very light. And so I do like to use the functions and the reactions and so forth. But I think what also works really well, I use the polls, but of course the ability to share screen can be so powerful. And when I was doing my training, I always remember being told, never do for learners what they can do for themselves. And so what I've got, the added bonus I've got now is the other day I was doing some management training, for example, and I wanted the managers to have a look at their core values and what behaviors, blah, blah, blah. And of course, traditionally, it would be go and find them. But now it was Google them, because we're already on on a technical platform. So I really believe that the whole technology that we can use literally at our fingertips is brilliant. And of course, what I've been doing is learning other things. So of course, I've been introduced to Jamboards on Google, so we've got lots of screens that we can use. I've done Mentimeter, I've done Slido. So again,
you've just really gone for it.
Hey, we have.
We have. My laurels, Claude.
Quick question.
Sure.
Particularly in the kind of corporate world, some people are trying to argue for doing more in a kind of asynchronous way, maybe by text or Jamboard or collaborative space, either before, during, or after a training course or any other event. What's your feelings on that? Have you thought about how to do that a bit, or is that still to come, or do you think that's wrong?
No, I personally have been embracing that for sure. I think it's really, really important, because what I'm finding is the learning is taking another level. I like to see learning almost like a Victoria sponge cake. And the whole thing of us being online, we've got some more cream, we've got some more jam, and we've got another sponge, and we've got some more cream, and we've got another sponge.
Yay.
It really has allowed us to be really quite creative. And one of the organisations I've worked for, the owner and I actually sat down and we wrote a Train the Trainer online, because what I think can happen, not to everyone, but what can happen is someone picks up their face-to-face course and goes, right, here we are on Zoom and let's do it. And I'm not saying it doesn't work, but it doesn't work for everything. So some of the activities, for example, will need just a little bit more thought. How does that work online? So for example, there's a communication activity that I do, and it's to encourage people just as an icebreaker. So of course, in the room, I'd have cards and I'd ask people to pick cards, and they're duos. So you might have Tom and Jerry, Michelle and Barack, Harry and Meghan, whatever, salt and pepper, and so forth. However, they're only allowed to ask closed questions to find their partner. So I thought it was one of my favorite communication activities. And I thought, how do I do this online? How? And so I just sat one day and thought, right, how would this work? And so what I did, I transferred it. And what I would do is give them something to do, an activity as an icebreaker. And while I'm doing that, in the chat, I private message them with their one, so Pauline, you would be Tom and you would be Jerry, kind of thing. And I'd private message you and then give the instructions. It worked a treat. It worked a treat. And not only did it work a treat, I said to them, okay, so there's 12 of them. And I said, okay, you can ask a closed question, but clearly nobody is allowed to answer. So, of course, you're sitting there hearing people go, and this was the killer with Tom and Jerry, would you chase me around the house? And somebody's like, what? Because, of course, they're thinking, well, I'm looking for the president and I'm looking, and nobody else. So it worked a treat. It worked a treat. And let's put it there this way, it worked a treat. So to answer your question, definitely embracing the online learning and the whole Jamboard thing. And of course, you and I know, we can capture that. We can save that slide. Before, it would be somebody going and typing it up after, or so we're actually using the time really, really well and sensibly. So I'm definitely for that and embracing that. For sure.
Here's my next question. My next question is, this is brilliant. How do you see taking all of this stuff when we're each in our little box, each in our little house or flat or room? How do you see taking into that environment, bringing back a training room with 8 or 10 people in it, with some people outside and some people there in person? Do you see that ever working? And if so, what factors do you think we need to get right to make anything like that work? Because for me, that would be like the biggest positive to come out of lockdown, is if we could work out ways, technical and also the softer side, of making those kind of hybrid events. Maybe training is not suitable for that, but for some events, at least, what do you think the factors are that would prevent that or enable it?
I think because even as you were saying it, I'm thinking, what are some of the different projects that I'm working on? So, for example, there's an organisation that we do work with schools. I mentioned I was literally in the school and had to come home on the 17th of March. And what they've done is they've been really, really quite clever with how they've had a look at their packages. So they've got an element now, clearly face-to-face, yes, but then they've got a version that is the trainer is, of course, remote, but there's a teacher in the classroom with the students. And then they've got another version where the students are actually separate and the trainer is then speaking with people separately. So even as you said it, I thought, my goodness, I didn't think about the next level, which is what you're saying. It could be that we've got 6 in the room and 2 people are perhaps online. But for me, again, I'm thinking, well, actually, if we made it work with 12 people online, we can make it work in that respect. Again, it's just going to be the same formula of sitting down and just ensuring, right, if we're doing group work, for example, 2-3 people are online, it's not always those 3 people who are in the breakout room. It could be that, somebody then just quickly presses the link and joins them in the breakout room, even though they're physically in the room. So I think it just means
we need to work on this. We need to try and work out
absolutely
to enable this. I'm going to do my usual plug here for an organisation that I think has been doing something similar to this for probably 25 years. And that is the University of the Highlands and Islands in Scotland. They've built campuses all of UHI. University of Highlands and Islands. They've got
you can see I'm jotting it down, can't you?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Literally all over Scotland, from Shetland down all the way down into the southwest of Scotland. And they've had a policy for years and years and years that you can in principle and also actually can attend any of their courses from any of their campuses, or indeed from home, if you've got adequate broadband at home. So for years and years, they've had 2 or 3 people here and 2 or 3 people there, and they've been teaching, students in that way for a long, long time, sometimes just using video. But I think that if they can get that to work, we could get, the training or the events world must be able to get at least some events. I mean, no doubt it'll be really hard for other events, but at least some events to the point where it's a choice whether you want to go to the room that is there for you to go to, or you choose to attend in your little box on Zoom or Google Meet or whatever.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that might be really helpful as well for people who have like autism or on the spectrum somewhere who don't necessarily want to have the contact with people but want to take part in the session. I think that could be really helpful. Yeah,
absolutely.
I think it's a straightforward accessibility issue in the end. I think it'll become up to event organisers. It'll become necessary for them to explain why it's an unreasonable ask to let people attend remotely, considering how far we've demonstrating how possible it is. It's bound by now, surely, to have become, for at least some events, a reasonable adjustment to the event offer to provide a Zoom attendance channel.
Claudette, I know that you can't stay with us for the whole of the rest of the show, I think, and we're very glad you were able to spare this amount of time to be with us. If people do want to find you online, what's the best way to do that or contact you?
Best way, certainly at the moment, is good old LinkedIn. But yes, you can definitely find me on LinkedIn, and I will be more than happy to link and connect with individuals. But yeah, best bet LinkedIn, which I had some help with years ago by Pauline. I just thought I'd whisper that in just there. But yeah, very, very happy.
You've come a long way, Claudette, and more power to your elbow.
Oh no, amazing.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll send you the link to the show when it's available. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really have enjoyed the space, and keep doing the great work, because definitely it's now needed more than ever before. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
I was just reading something the other day. Did they say we're not supposed to wave on Zoom? Well,
we wave.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye. That was great. I haven't seen Claudette in person, obviously, for over a year, but it was great to see her on screen and to hear how well she's doing. It sounds like that's a really positive. I must catch up with her.
Really encouraging conversation.
I must find out if they're going to offer that again, because it sounds like something that's very well needed.
The Zoom workshops, yes.
Boot camp for the terrified, I think she had it down as. So I'd like to cover, Sweyn, some of the stories that we picked up during the week. If we can go to the one on the video, the YouTube video, which is a step-by-step guide of how digital tools can play an essential part in healing and grieving in the COVID era, which is a video produced by Midlands-based street artist and curator Muhammad Ali, inspired by supporting his mother through COVID and then her death. He's put together this video toolkit on YouTube to help those who can learn from his family's experience to use digital tools for healing and grieving. So are we able to?
Yes, I've got a video ready to go. It seems to be 12 minutes long. Is that the one?
Yeah, if you just play the first minute, I think it just gives an introduction to it that I think people might find useful.
Yeah, no, here we go. No sound. Start again.
I'll just keep talking until it starts. Basically, Muhammad Ali goes through using FaceTime and video calling and preparing devices for use in a hospital setting, including contactless video calling and answering. And he also describes testing that the setup works before it goes into the hospital with the person who needs it. And in the last part of the video, he explains... No, can't see it. In the last part of the video, he explains how the family used live streaming on a private link to increase the number of people who could attend his mother's funeral virtually. Okay, there we go now. I can see it on screen.
My fault.
I can't hear any sound. Oh yeah, here we go.
Okay, but passed away from COVID just a few weeks ago on January the 17th, 2021. I'm making this video because I felt compelled to share with people the use of technology, how it's such an important tool to embrace. Actually, I'm hearing too much how people are suffering alone in hospital without their families, and many people who are dying alone. There are two parts to this video. The first part is how we as a family used iPads and FaceTime group video calling to kind of be with our mother in this difficult moment, as well as her feel like she had her family with her. And the second part is the funeral service and how we were able to increase from the restrictions of 30 people through live streaming, so that people were able to be part of the process.
Great. I thought that was a particularly useful video. As you
Great.
say, it's 13 minutes long, and it just goes through one family's particular experience. But preparing, I think it's the kind of thing John Popham would have put together to
Yes.
step by step play toolkit
Yes.
to explain to people how to
I think
use
that
the
would be really
devices.
useful.
Mm. So,
My partner, she had a cousin die unexpectedly on his own in Italy. He was quite well to do, and he had a house in Italy there, and he died a couple of weeks ago. And of course, he lives on his own when he's there, and there was nothing to do but organise a remote, a funeral for him remotely for his sister. His sister organised everything from, I think it was from Ireland that she lives in. But nobody could go to the funeral or anything. But at least the cousins, because we're of an age where it's mainly cousins, there are not many aunts and uncles left. At least the cousins could get together or even exchange things online, readings, music, that sort of thing. And I think this kind of video will be really helpful to families who find themselves in that sort of situation.
Yeah, one thing I learned from John Popham's funeral was that to remember to say to the people organising the live streaming to make sure that it goes on a bit longer, because I think back in September people were still getting used to doing this, and not realising that the video will cut off whether you're whether the event is finished or not. So just a word of advice for anybody who's organising one of those sad occasions now. Okay,
it can't be too automatic, or else the timings can go wrong.
Mm-hmm. I think had John been here, he would have been advising people to have a backup, to do more than one way of live streaming. I know I used to see him at events where he'd have more, he'd do Facebook Live and a backup video independently as well, just in case.
Which reminds us of of his hospital stays, when he seemed to take more gizmos and gadgets than toiletries.
Yeah. Well, this video that Muhammad Ali has put together, it does say about, bringing the gadgets in, making sure they're charged, and also having an extension cable so that, if the bed the person is in is a long way from where it's plugged into where the device is plugged into the wall, that you have a long enough extension cable to reach that power source. He also makes a point about having a stand to put your device on, because, if you have your device in a cover like most of us have, and the cover's on the table in front of the patient, often they can't see the person. So having a little stand, like a selfie stick, but on a flat bed, can help make sure the connection is good while the person is not able to be with you. Okay, so we've got a few more stories, Sweyn, if you don't mind, that we cover.
That's fine.
There's one about a new task force to tackle London's digital divide, and I've covered this one because I saw it tweeted by somebody. We used to work in libraries, and the story says that the London's Chief Digital Officer Theo Blackwell is going to lead a new task force to tackle digital exclusion across the capital, addressing connectivity, devices and skills, which is great. But Liz McGettigan, Director of Digital Library Experiences Solace, says in response to this item, don't reinvent the wheel. London has a fabulous network of libraries in every community. Rethink and invest in them for a fantastic future. So while we recognise that London, like other cities, has a digital divide and needs to be breached, maybe existing library services could be funded to do that, and not this doesn't have to start from the beginning. Basically, it's not a blank slate.
Theo Blackwell, I know, has quite close connections and keeps in touch with the Scottish Digital Office. I mean, the population of Scotland and the population of London is they're comparable, and they also conveniently have 32 local authorities each, which is just a coincidence. But so I'm hopefully that some of the good thinking in London will come to Scotland, and some of that don't reinvent the wheel stuff that the digital office in Scotland is so good at will flow southwards.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a budget. Apparently, the mayor set a budget of 1.5 million over the next 2 years for work with the London Office of Technology and Innovation on this. But, if some of that money could be repurposed or redirected into existing libraries who do such great work already,
absolutely,
that might, help to address some of that need for lack of duplication. Okay, our next story is about 1,800 free Raspberry Pi computers to young people in need this month. And this was a tweet I saw from Nicola Lyons, who said that 50 teachers and young youth workers will be distributing over 1,800 free Raspberry Pi computers to young people in need this month, thanks to Barnardo's and a recruitment and training company, My Foster Family. So I thought that was a nice story. Raspberry Pis aren't familiar to everybody, Sweyn, so we probably need to explain what a Raspberry Pi is. Are you able to jump in there?
Well, it's stripped back to the essentials, very low cost computing device, which traditionally people originally was intended to be available very low cost to help young people learn to code, but it's also had quite a life as a control mechanism for things that want to go on the internet. So there's a lot of creativity around and innovation around the use of the Raspberry Pi, but it's a pared back, capable but very low cost computing device.
Great.
Leave it at that.
So that could be handy to some of our listeners to know that that's a possibility, and well done to Raspberry Pi for getting these. Well done to Barnardo's and My Foster Family for getting these out to people who need them.
Well, there's a Twitter account for the Raspberry Pi project, which is at Raspberry_Pi PI. So
you can find out more about using a Raspberry Pi if you'd like to from them. Okay, and the next one was a story from Ireland, which I picked up yesterday, and it's a new plan to address adult literacy, numeracy, and digital skills in Ireland. And the tweet was from Simon Harris, TD, who's the Minister for Further and Higher Education, Research, Innovation and Science in the Irish Government. And I picked it up because I thought this was a nice admission you don't often get from a government colleague, if they're not able to say it or whatever. But he said the tweet before the one you've got on screen, Sweyn, it was around 25% of adults struggle with numbers like understanding a utility bill. Around half of us lack basic digital skills. If we don't address these issues, many people will effectively be locked out of full participation in society and the economy, and we don't talk about this enough. And then he comes on to say, what struck me was the sense of shame and embarrassment people felt around these issues, and that stops them seeking to learn. We need to end that stigma. The embarrassment should be ours, all of ours, for leaving people behind and not doing more on this over decades. Well, I think that's very refreshing to hear somebody say that. We shouldn't be in this situation.
The shame should be that we've made it so dull, boring, and difficult to get to grips with these things, as Claudette was kind of hinting at in a different way.
Yeah,
I totally approve of all of those comments.
Yeah. So great to see that up on screen. We've got two more things we're going to try and get in before the end of the show. The first one is from Stuart Berry, GP, who tweeted about health literacy, an infographic actually from pifonline.org.uk. So if you're able to go to that tweet and then download the graphic, Sweyn, to help people see it. I thought it was a good list of things about health literacy. I'm not sure it's coming up too well on the screen actually.
It'll come if you give it a minute.
Okay, it's Health Literacy Matters, and it basically gives a list of the kind of things that we can use the internet for, especially these days, to help people. Let me see if I can go to it and just read it off my own screen.
Sorry,
that's okay. It's available for download from anybody, and basically it says people need trustworthy information to make decisions about health, but 1 million can't follow a letter from a GP surgery or hospital department. 5 million can't find relevant data in standard health information. 1.7 million are unable to explain symptoms and feelings over the phone. 6.5 million cannot measure or record height and weight on a chart, and 9 million are unable to use digital tools unaided. So it's not a good situation at a time when, more than ever, we need to be able to help look after our own health. So there's some very good information there.
Back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, isn't it? I mean, we talk about digital inclusion, but there are certain prerequisites, between the things like enough food and a warm place to actually try this all out. There's other skills that digital inclusion will depend on, and if we can't make any progress on those things, then we will always struggle.
Yeah. but there's some useful information at the end of this poster as well that helps, how to address this issue. And the first one is to use the NHS Style Guide, which recommends aiming for a reading age of 9 for information, shared decision making, and informed consent. Involve users in development and use patient voices and case studies. Make information easy to access, use, and navigate. Make it easy for users to give feedback, and promote information so it reaches the people who need it most. I think that's
I
really,
misheard
really
the patient
useful.
voices part.
It's
You mean patient as in service user or
yes,
person? But
yes,
it would equally apply that we need voices who display patience and
yes.
help people
I thoroughly
actually
agree.
get
I
where they need to
wrote
be.
something at the weekend about that for another presentation,
Yes.
and yeah, being patient is a key skill.
Mhm.
So it's good to see this being explained a bit more there. So I think that was really useful. And the last one, if we have time, is on digital inclusion and older people, and this is from the People's Health Trust. And they talk about how, as we know, according to the ONS, older people have consistently been the lowest users of the internet since its inception. And the ONS report found that found that of the 4 million people in the UK who've never used the internet, 84% were over the age of 65 and 62% were over the age of 75. And the point of this story is that there's growing evidence that having a lack of social connection significantly increases the risk of premature mortality. According to the Institute of Health Equity, the effect of social isolation is comparable to smoking and more detrimental than obesity and lack of physical
Wow.
activity. Quite startling. Social connections can
Wow.
reduce mortality. However, to achieve this during the pandemic, older people must have the means to access digital devices and the skills in using technology to build or maintain social connections. Well, that's sobering.
This website is not looking very good on the screen, but it's full of good stuff.
It is. I found it really useful. Are you able to give the what the website address is, Sweyn?
It's peopleshealthtrust.org.uk, and then it's in the blog section.
Mm-hmm.
And the article is called Digital Inclusion and Older People.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the first, perhaps in a long time, story that we've quoted that is so. Yeah, it just says this need is urgent. Yeah.
And this is the wheel that doesn't need to be reinvented.
Mm.
People like the London Digital Office, as I'm going to call it, I can't remember the proper name, and others, particularly it's almost the larger the organization which comes to these issues, the more likely they are to start from scratch and ignore what's going on already on the ground. And the big message has to be, look at all the community initiatives that there are already and try and work towards supporting and improving and connecting them together.
Yeah, we'll in the weeks to come, we're going to have a guest from an academic background who's been talking about that and the need to work on a very local level. But before that, we have other guests coming on. We're very pleased to say we don't usually announce our guests, do we, Sweyn, beforehand? Because
in case something goes wrong.
Yeah, we have guests lined up for next week and the following week. At least anyway. So thanks again to our guest for today, Claudette Dawson from working for Shakti Women to do the Zoom boot camps. And all our guests, we're very grateful to you for coming on the Dr. Tech Show. If you would like to come on the show yourself to talk about guiding people online, please contact us. You can email the drtechshow@gmail.com. So it's Dr. Tech Show, Doctor all spelled out, drtechshow@gmail.com. And we will respond, or contact us on Twitter. Sweyn is Sweyn H on Twitter, and I am Pauline Roche, Pauline Roche. So with that, I think we're ready to play out. Thank you very much. Thanks, Sweyn.
Yes,
Another great show.
Everyone, and especially Claudette.